Senator Rand Paul has introduced a piece of legislation that intends to look into and cause more transparency with the renovations at the Federal Reserve. Now, the Federal Reserve is being renovated, the buildings itself that make up the main part of the Federal Reserve, and it's currently sitting at about $2.5 billion worth of renovations, and they say that's about $600 million over budget. And Donald Trump is, of course, using this against Fed Chairman Jerome Powell. He wants to get rid of Powell because interest rates are too high, according to Donald Trump. He wants them dropped down to what they were in 2020, about 3%, slightly under. Not at the current, I think it's 6-7% rate, something like that. Because he claims it's too expensive to borrow money for him and his wealthy friends. They want cheap interest rates, and he doesn't care what that might do to the economy. But Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve, looking at long-term, like 30-year long-term projections, are trying to make subtle changes, and Donald Trump doesn't like it. Well, now Rand Paul is introducing this legislation to look into the costly renovations at the Federal Reserve and trying to say that it is somehow Powell's fault and they need more transparency, which, if they do want to look into where the money's going, that's great. But from what the Federal Reserve is saying about where the money has gone, it seems like it makes sense. There was a large expense to get rid of asbestos and lead-based piping and, I believe, paint, which are all things that probably should have been done years ago. Now, the Federal Reserve buildings were built in the 1930s, and while they have been kept up, they have not been renovated since, and they are fixing a lot of antiquated systems. So $2.5 billion probably is right in the right ballpark. I'm not sure. I'm not in construction, but you're also dealing with a historical building, and they have to be within certain limits on how they can fix it up to make sure it stays, within the realms of keeping it historical and looking the way they want it to look, while still fixing the things that need to be fixed. It's not as easy as just renovating your house and getting rid of a plaster wall for drywall or something like that. So he wants to introduce this. Now we'll see if it goes anywhere, because I believe you would still need Democratic support. And I don't know if they would have it. This is just another attempt to find a reason for Donald Trump to go after Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve, so he can find a reason to get rid of him, because Donald Trump doesn't like the fact that Jerome Powell is an independent person and is not answerable to the president. He wants to replace him with somebody who is more controllable than Jerome Powell. So we'll see what happens with this bill.